everyone, and welcome back to Casual Climbers, a podcast by and for beginning hikers and those who may not quite be physically ready to tackle the Appalachian Trail. I'm your host, Donna Padrick, and with me is my husband and adventure buddy, Roy.
Hi.
Hi, Roy.
Now, we just got back from this one, so this one is very fresh in our memory.
Yeah, our muscles haven't even gotten a chance to get really sore yet.
They have not. So in this podcast, we provide you with information, tips, and tricks on how to get into hiking in the Blue Ridge area, and we will cover some of the hundreds of trails in the various parks in the region, and hopefully maybe entertain you along the way.
Yeah.
We're two middle-aged, perhaps not in the best shape hikers.
Definitely not in the best shape hikers.
Who love the outdoors and want to share our experiences with you.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Let's go.
So today was another twofer, Donna, like last week.
Yeah.
So we did the Brissy Ridge and Pipsissewa trails there at Paris Mountain State Park. Now, the reason we did them both is because you can only get to the Pipsissewa via either the Brissy Ridge or going the very long way around Sulphur Springs, Canoga Trail, North Lake Trail.
Yeah, we touched on that just a little bit last week. This was definitely a better way to get to the Pipsissewa, but still, it's a misnomer, I think, how they call the Pipsissewa Trail, easy or something, I don't know, but...
Moderate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But you have to go through a not moderate trail to get to the beginning of the Pipsissewa Trail.
Yeah.
So
here was our day by the numbers. The total distance of both these trails was 4.59 miles, and it was mostly a loop. The time we took was 3 hours and 25 minutes total time, including stops at a comfortable pace, and 2 hours and 1 minute of that was actual moving time. So if you pushed through and didn't stop once, you could get it done in 2 hours.
Yeah, we came across a number of people jogging and whatnot. That's kind of impressive to me.
Yeah, more power to them. Whatever fitness level you're at, have at it. If you feel like running this trail, that's great. If you feel like going at a very slow pace, that's great too.
Listen, if you're calling yourself an unfit hiker, then you're not running this trail.
I wouldn't think so. No. The lowest point that we encountered was definitely at the bottom of the Pipsissewa Trail, and that was 1,025 feet above sea level. The highest point was at the top of Brissy Ridge, and that was 1,425 feet above sea level. This trail, both the trails, are pet friendly. We saw lots of dogs today.
Yeah, sweet dogs.
But we didn't see many kids, and the first part of the Brissy Ridge would be very challenging for little kids to get through, and so we'll go through that now. So why don't you tell us about the first part of the trail? Oh, for the listeners, just so you're aware, I always post the route map on our website, casualclimbers.podbean.com. Look in the trail photos section, and you'll see the photos for each episode. We go counterclockwise in this particular trail for a very specific reason that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you mapped it out that way, the way that you did. Yeah. So I want to talk about weather right out of the gate today because there was a huge winter storm that hit between yesterday and today, and it didn't affect Greenville, South Carolina, except for in just the temperature. When we started this hike, now keep in mind we're Floridians, both of us, and when we what was the temperature when we started our hike today?
23 degrees.
23 degrees. So yeah, that right there is enough to usually keep a Floridian inside. But it didn't slow us down. Clearly, we got out there and we did it. And I'm glad we did. But yeah, the news has been talking about snow and winter storms across the country. More than 100 million people, nearly 30% of the U.S. population, underwent winter weather alerts between yesterday and today. So these were extreme weather conditions. I read an article that said that these conditions have killed at least 67 people across 13 states. Tennessee had the most storm-related deaths at 19. So this was a serious storm. Thankfully, we didn't get the ice and the snow and and all that. Although I would really love to see snow. Roy, what about
I
you?
would too. Yeah. I mean, we moved here in the hopes that we would get a white Christmas. It didn't come close. But I love the cold weather, and every single morning the water that we put out for the neighborhood squirrels is frozen over, so they get a little ice skating rink on the front porch.
I mean, that was so cute when that squirrel was pawing at the ice. That was,
It was cute and sad.
It was sad too. So I had to dump the ice out and just give the squirrel some fresh water. And then we saw little squirrel footprints, but not the point here. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to mention the winter storm because my mom was concerned about us going for this hike today because she knew we were planning on it. So she texted yesterday and was like, you guys are you're not still going, are you?
We did.
Yeah. So anyway.
So it was cold, and we bundled. The best thing to do, here's my best advice for cold weather hiking, is layer, because you never know when you're going to be on the sun side of the mountain and on the wind side of the mountain. And so having good layers is a way to minimize any problems that you may run into. So I wore, a sock cap, gloves that weren't quite good enough. Donna's battery-powered heating gloves saved the day. I had thick hiking socks on. I had thermal long johns under my thick sweatpants, and then I had a knit thermal shirt, a sweatshirt, and a jacket on over. So overall, I was plenty warm enough for this. But if you're coming anytime outside of winter, obviously you don't need to worry about that. So we're going to start out by saying right away, Brissy Ridge is definitely a feel the burn hike.
Yeah.
This is a no-joke hike, especially the first half. The first half, going counterclockwise, is very, very challenging for no other reason than the elevation change and the footing. The footing is precarious in many, many places.
Yes. It definitely that's what okay, so when we were talking about how we went counterclockwise, we went to the right first. The reason that we went to the right first is because that's the harder part of the Brissy Ridge. So you I think you meet up with the Pipsissewa trail. I can't remember how far into, was it like a mile and a half?
It's right at a mile.
Okay, a mile in, but it feels like you've gone farther because it's challenging to climb. You're climbing down when you go to the right first. Now, if you do the loop the other way, you would be climbing up this difficult part. And also you'd be doing the more difficult part at the end of your hike, which there again, I think is the wisdom in going to the right first. Now, some people would argue that hiking down is harder than hiking up. Hiking up gets me out of breath, but hiking down, it's a different kind of strain on your knees and your hips, I think.
Definitely for my knees. And I have a harder time going down because of my knees, but also because footing, especially with so many leaves falling on the ground, is tough.
And if there was any moisture at all, then there was possibly icy.
We did see several rocks that were frozen over that had small gradual drips from a nearby crevice or something like that. But
yeah, and we saw some frozen mushroom stems.
Yeah, we saw lots of frozen mushrooms.
What
I
did
call
you
them
call
mushicles.
Mushicles.
Yeah. Mushicles.
Mushicles. Okay.
Yeah. I did not put any in my mouth this time, which, as Donna will tell you guys, I have a problem with putting stuff in my mouth.
Yeah, I would think that mushrooms would be one thing that you wouldn't put in your mouth because you don't like mushrooms in general. But
I hate mushrooms. They're disgusting. They're gross fungus and shouldn't be anywhere near food.
I disagree, and so many of our listeners, I think, will disagree with you on that.
I think I'm in the majority on this one.
I'm not sure you are.
I'm pretty sure I am.
So I will say that when we went to, it was like, it was a botanical gardens in South Carolina. I believe it was in
you're talking about
Clemson.
the Clemson Arboretum? Yeah.
It's a beautiful botanical garden, but they have this section that has, I think it's in the kids section, and it has herbs and stuff like that. And I get it. You know, like Roy wanted to pull a leaf off and put it in his mouth, and he did a few times. But I'm just thinking, you know what? This is outside, and this is where the birds poop and the lizards and all that stuff. You know, maybe
Where do you think vegetables come from, Donna?
you wash them before you eat them. That's the thing.
Rain is nature's washing machine.
Yeah. Okay.
We're digressing
We are
on
digressing.
attacking me.
No, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying that I'm letting the listeners know how how you are. Your unique facets, certain unique facets of your personality. That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
It's just, I think right now you're just kind of being mean.
mean, my gosh.
All right. There is some hazards on this trail, guys. About 0.4 miles in, there are 2 trees that are clearly in the trail that have fallen that you have to climb over. There's a photo on the website that you'll see if you go to it to show you what it's like. You can't go under them. You have to go over, and there's several spots that you have to shimmy around and shimmy over. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about doing this trail anytime soon. Now, Paris Mountain State Park rangers are very good about clearing them, but it was clear these had been there for a hot minute.
Yeah, we came across a guy on the trail that had circled back because of that. He just didn't go any further on that. Now, he was with his dog, but I think he looked like he and his dog could have handled it. I mean, we handled it.
Yeah, he could have handled it. I think he was unsure of whether or not that was actually a real path.
Right. He was unsure that that was part of the trail, that you're supposed to continue on past this mess. I will say, I think that was the only. Was that the only down stuff that we had to climb over?
It was the only down tree that we had to climb over, but there were a number of parts of the Brissy Ridge that were very narrow, that had rocks and heavy roots that you really had to keep your balance on. And also, there is a section where it's earth stairs that are shored up by boards.
Yeah, I think it was 34 steps.
Going down.
Well, yeah.
So I had done this trail months and months ago, and I went the other way, and it really was brutal. The Brissy Ridge Trail going clockwise from the trailhead at the top is rough. And so I wanted to make sure that when we did this one, because we were adding the extra 2 miles for Pipsissewa, that we did the tough part first.
Right.
So one thing too that you guys should know is the Brissy Ridge by itself is pretty unremarkable for views. There's like next to nothing to look at. There is no payoff. There is no mountain view. There's certainly no waterfalls. There's not even really any water. There's a tiny creek that you cross one time.
Yeah. Well, no, there was that little tiny bridge thing. Remember?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that is.
It's like 18 inches wide. It's not very big at all.
Okay. Yeah, but I still get excited every time I see water.
As do I, but we're not talking about like the North Lake size or the big creek that runs through Sulphur Springs at the parking area there. This is a tiny little creek.
Yeah.
But for views wise, I didn't care for the Brissy Ridge for views. I think the reward for Brissy Ridge is the hike itself.
Yeah, the bragging rights, being able to say that you did it. I think that's it. That and getting to Pipsissewa and then doing Pipsissewa down to the North Lake. That's another reason to do this. But you could take the easy way. If you were just trying to do Pipsissewa, you might take the Brissy Ridge, like you might just go to the left, take the easier way in, and then take Pipsissewa down and then back up, and then take the easy way around on the Brissy Ridge. That's an option.
That's probably the better way to go if people are just trying to get to North Lake. And we had talked about this. There are the campgrounds that are there around North Lake. There's 5 camping areas, primitive camping areas, by the way. No bathrooms, no running water, no electricity, that you can stay in. And that would be the best way to get to them, is to take the Brissy Ridge clockwise and then the Pipsissewa Trail. Now, the Pipsissewa Trail, we're going to go ahead and move into Pipsissewa now. This way, that trail is shorter than the Canoga that we took to get to North Lake last time, and I found it to be fairly easy.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that one really narrow part of the Pipsissewa that it was like it was up on one side and down on the other, and the trail itself was if you couldn't pass somebody else or anything this stretch of it, and there were a lot of leaves. With it being a little icy, I was nervous about the amount of leaves, like if there was any water or any slippery in between. We got through it fine. It was funny because on the way back, you said we should lift up our feet because we don't know if there's rocks around those leaves. And you lifted up your feet, and I agreed with you in that moment. And then I started shuffling my feet because I just wanted to make sure that the leaves weren't too deep. So you're like, I thought you were going to lift your feet and you're shuffling your feet. I changed my mind without letting you know. So yeah, made an executive decision and all ended just fine.
Yeah, it ended fine. I mean, I think picking up your feet over that is better because you run the risk of tripping over a rock or a root much more than shuffling. But,
I
we got
agree.
through it.
Yeah. We tried 2 different techniques. Yeah.
We did. They were both successful.
Yeah.
And so the Pipsissewa decline is not that bad, going from the top of Brissy Ridge down to North Lake, and the incline is not that bad either. So it was, and again, it was another one where there was no view payoff on either way. At least on last week's Canoga Trail, as you wound down, yes, it was a harder trail, but as you wound down, you actually got to see the lake and the surrounding mountains, and there wasn't really much of that in the Pipsissewa.
That's true.
So, the payoff for the Pipsissewa is just getting down to the North Lake. That's really the only payoff.
Yeah. We found a bench down there and had some lunch. There was somebody actually camping.
There was somebody camping, yeah.
Yeah. At the first campground that you get. So now I kind of understand why that first campground is called campground number 1. It was so far from where you enter the North Lake Trail from the Canoga, but it was right there if you're entering there from the Pipsissewa, which if you were going to do the primitive camping, which he's right, no phone, no light, no motor cars, not a single luxury. It's just really, really primitive, exactly what it says. But I guess that's where they mean for you to come in is from the Pipsissewa Trail, because that's where number 1 is.
Yeah, I don't know which way. It may be that Canoga was added later. I don't know, but it is a much simpler way to get in. So if you're schlepping a bunch of stuff on your back, you and your family or friends, the left Brissy Ridge to Pipsissewa is the 100%. That's the way I would go.
Either that, or you could park you were mentioning you could park at the main park because you do cross a road when you're on that part of the the Brissy Ridge.
That's right. Yeah. So there is a campground. I guess campground's probably not the right word for it. There's a little camp area called Camp Buckhorn that is inside Paris Mountain, and they use it for various events. I'm fairly certain you can rent it out. It is behind a locked gated area from the top of the parking lot for Brissy Ridge, and the Brissy Ridge Trail does cross over that road that takes you to Camp Buckhorn.
Yeah, there's this white sign. It's like a what are those signs called that, it's just set up. It's this plastic sign on the road that says Camp Buckhorn, guests and park staff only beyond this point. And you're crossing the road at that point to go from one part of the Brissy Ridge to another part of the Brissy Ridge. It's all the more challenging side, but I feel like after that sign, after you cross that road, that the Brissy Ridge is easier. So you could park down a little ways. What was that?
In the overflow parking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
walk up the road.
Walk up the road and do that little tiny bit of the Brissy Ridge to get to the Pipsissewa. That wouldn't be bad if you're going to be camping, or if you just want to get to the beginning of the Pipsissewa, an easier way. I think, that's bypassing.
A lot of the hard stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think, if you're carrying 50 pounds of camping supplies and food, you'd want it to be as easy as possible to get there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I do. I mean, I guess some people really, really want, that I heard some people say, this is such a beautiful hike. And I love that energy. And I agree. It is a beautiful hike. Everything is a beautiful hike to me because we're in a mountainous area and it's colder weather and it's something very, very different for me, for us. Yeah. I did notice that there's a sign for the Brissy Ridge that says foot traffic only, bicycle, horses, and motorized vehicles are prohibited. So that's interesting.
There
That's
is a part of the Brissy Ridge that is motor, or that is mountain bike accessible, and that is the first part where it's at the trailhead to where the Canoga Trail splits off.
okay.
But the majority of Brissy Ridge is not
I,
mountain bike accessible, and I can totally see why from the first part, the
yeah.
first half going counterclockwise.
You'd have to walk your bike
You'd
over.
have to pick it up over things. You'd have to, yeah, it is not an easy footing situation.
Yeah.
So overall, though, the Brissy Ridge is great if you're looking for a workout. If you're looking for views or a casual stroll, there are way better choices. You're not going to get any views on this one. You're not going to get any exciting vistas. You're not going to get a nice leisurely walk in the woods. This is a challenging trail where the only payoff, in my opinion, is the fact that you completed the trail.
I mean, I don't know. We took a few pictures. You can see mountains through through the trees that don't have leaves on them. I took a few pictures and I'll put them on the website. But yeah, there's prettier I yeah, there's prettier hikes out there.
There's a prettier hike literally off of the Canoga Trail is a way better hike, in my opinion. Much prettier hike, and it's right there.
Yeah, so we started doing this in the winter. And so I keep thinking to myself, we're going to have to come back and revisit this when the mountain laurels are in bloom, the spring and fall. So the mountain laurels in spring or when the fall, colors are out.
I didn't see any mountain laurel trees, maybe a handful here and there
Yeah.
on the Brissy Ridge or the Pipsissewa. Not like we did in Sassafras Trail that was just exploding with mountain laurel trees.
Yeah. I don't know.
If you want to work out it, so that's my opinion, listeners. If you want to work out and nothing else, Brissy Ridge is great. If you want beautiful views, this is not the trail for you.
Or if you want an easier way down to North Lake, Pipsissewa's the way to go. But just maybe park and come up the road and do a little tiny bit of the Brissy Ridge.
Yeah.
So,
So it wasn't. This episode will be fairly short, listeners, shorter than usual, probably about 25, 30 minutes, just because there's not really much to remark on these particular ones. We last week we covered the North Lake, which was absolutely beautiful. So there's not much to cover here, just two trails on the one. And Pipsissewa was fairly easy. I would definitely classify it as maybe a break the sweat, only because the incline back up, right, Donna?
a little bit, yeah. We had lunch down looking at the North Lake. That was really nice. Yeah, we had a blue sky day. I have a thing for blue sky days, and it was a blue sky day for us today. Roy likes blue skies, but he likes some clouds. He likes having the clouds that mix things up.
Texture. I like texture to the skies. Yeah.
I like that too, but I love blue sky. Blue's my favorite color. So yeah, so I got some good pictures of North Lake, which I don't think that'll ever get old for me. We're definitely going to be visiting the North Lake in the summer.
I agree. Yeah, North Lake is really, it's a true hidden gem in Paris Mountain State Park, because we had gone to that park dozens of times and had no idea it even existed
Yeah.
as a thing you could get to.
Right. We had seen it from the top, I believe, of the Canoga Trail, but I didn't know it was part of. I didn't know that there was trails that went to it.
Me either. And it's worth it. It is worth, whichever way you go, getting to North Lake is worth it.
Yeah. So Brissy Ridge it's marked on the trees as yellow. You follow the yellow markings on the tree, and I found it to be pretty well marked. And the color that you follow to follow Pipsissewa is kind of an aqua color, which I found really close in color to the light blue that is the North Lake Trail, but that's okay. It's different enough. It's definitely aqua,
especially if you're coming off the yellow.
Right.
Brissy Ridge.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a popular path. We saw lots of people today, even in 23-degree weather. We saw lots of people.
Crazy to me, and so we were like so cold at the beginning. Both of us, our fingers so cold that we thought, okay, this is where I lose my fingers to frostbite. But like painfully cold, my fingers. But everything else, my core, I overdid it with my core. I was too warm. My legs with my thermals and my jeans were fine. And hey, listen, I am in my mid-50s. I'm 54, and I realize that menopause has given me a superpower in hot flashes. So all I have to do is drink. I brought some caffeinated coffee. Now, I normally drink decaf, but I brought some caffeinated coffee with me. And all I have to do is drink a little bit of caffeine and I'll get hot flashes. That definitely worked. So I had my coffee with me. My thermos kept it nice and warm. That was pretty great. But yeah, there in the beginning, we were so cold. Just our fingers, because our heads were warm, our ears were warm, everything else was warm. I mean, I was, right?
Yeah, my core was fine. My legs were fine. My head was mostly fine. So if you don't know, guys, I'm bald. So my head gets cold. I don't have any fur to cover it. And my fingers were brutal until I pilfered her nice little warming gloves.
Yeah, he waited. He was such a gentleman. He waited for me to have a hot flash, and I didn't need my warm gloves anymore. And then I was like, "Oh, here, you can use these." Yeah.
It was great. They really worked, and it kept it on. So other than that, Donna, I used a single hiking pole. I had my hiking shoes on and my hiking backpack that has the water bladder, and I finished quite a bit of it, more than I expected to, out of the 3 liters that are in there. You had one pole too. Was that enough for you?
For most, yeah. There was one point on the hike when I thought, oh, if I had 2 poles, I would be using them here. But it wasn't because of climbing up over rocks, and it wasn't because of anything challenging. It was just because I was tired. It just was, I sort of picture myself when I have the 2 poles, I picture myself kind of like a giraffe. The 2 poles become my front 2 legs, and then it's just kind of nice to be able to take that pressure off of my legs and hips. But it was just maybe like a 5-minute stretch that I was just really tired. So hiking, I realized hiking for me is a really good form of exercise because I'm a quitter. So if I was in a gym and I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm just too tired to keep going, in a gym, you quit and you go home and you have a bowl of ice cream. And then you just, completely ruin what you just did. But for me, hiking, like, you're in it when you get tired. You have to keep going because you have to get back. You can't say, this is where I live now. I mean, inside my head, sometimes I joke with myself like that. But yeah, no, you have to walk back out. So
yeah, you can't get to the North Lake and then say, I'm done. I'm not going to move anymore.
Right. I mean, I tried that a little bit last week with, I told Roy, I said, okay, this is where I live now. And he's like, okay, bye. And
I did not. She's lying. Don't listen to her.
So I know I can't do that with him. But
So overall, though, I mean, I'm glad we did it, of course.
oh yeah.
And, I'm glad we were able to give this information to our listeners. But it's really not something I think I'm going to make a habit of doing. The payoff is so little for the effort you put in, unless the effort is your payoff. And if that's the case, more power to you.
And yeah.
For me, the payoff is the beautiful views and the wonderful sounds that you hear out in nature, and there just wasn't much of that.
There is a possibility too that we might have come into this hike being a little bit more grumpy than we normally are, just because of how cold it was. And just
That's
because of
possible.
the pain in our fingers.
Yeah, that's possible.
So we might be looking through not rose-colored glasses at this hike.
Poop-colored glasses?
Nah, that's not a thing.
It's a thing. I just made it a thing.
Okay.
I want our listeners to start saying
No,
poop-colored glasses.
oh God, no, please don't.
I do. Okay, guys. So that's it. That's our episode for this week. We did Pipsissewa and the Brissy Ridge Trail Loop. almost 6 miles, 3.5 hours total time at a comfortable pace with stops. Like I said, we had lunch down at the North Lake. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next week, we will cover the last full trail at Paris Mountain State Park, and that is the long Sulphur Springs Trail. You looking forward to that one, Donna?
Oh yeah.
She's not looking forward to it.
I mean, it's gonna be fine. It's probably gonna be a beautiful hike, and I know now that we can do this, and we will survive.
Of course we'll survive. So the Sulphur Springs we'll do next week. Hopefully we have a lot of great things to tell you. Now, we've done many, many parts of the Sulphur Trail, and several of the parts we've done have been beautiful. So I'm anticipating this is going to be an enjoyable trail for us. It starts out real low, and then loops up to the highest part of the mountain, and then loops back down. So it's going to be a challenge. It is considered the toughest trail at Paris Mountain State Park. So we saved the hardest for last. But again, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe on iTunes or YouTube Music or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Leave us a comment. Comments are 100% how the podcast grows. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family if you find this interesting. And if there's anything that you want for us to cover, drop us a note and I'm sure Donna will read it.
We'll both read it.
We will both read it. All right. Thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you out on the trail.
Yes.